Hey there everyone, welcome to another edition of TJ's Reef. Today's episode is going to be the top 5 pieces of gear that I think you should have to be as successful as you possibly can be in keeping a really awesome reef tank. Stay tuned. Hey there everyone, and welcome to this episode of TJ's Reef. So on today's episode, I want to talk about what I think are the top 5 pieces of reefing equipment that you should make sure you have and make sure you buy a good quality product if you want to have a really successful reef tank. Now, can you have a tank without these pieces of equipment? Absolutely. Is it going to be harder? Probably. Is it going to be the best you could possibly do? Probably not. And that's why if you're going to pick any top 5 things to get going on your first tank or maybe your 51st tank, these are what I think are the best places to spend your money and make sure you get something that's really nice and is going to promise probably the best chance of having a successful outcome. So you can see we've got the tank here and we've got the front cover of the stand. That's it right there off to the side, because we're going to go in and under the tank today to discuss what I think are the top 5 pieces of reefing equipment that you should have to be successful. So let's dive right in. Okay, all right, now here we go. This is the first thing. Again, these are in no particular order, but the number 1 piece of gear that I think you need to have a successful reef tank is a protein skimmer. Now, you do hear about people running without a skimmer, and I'm guessing most of them are more experienced reefers. And, you know, it just sounds like you're making more work for yourself. You got to get nutrients out, and you got to get air in. And to me, a skimmer is the easiest way to take care of some of these issues. First of all, yes, it gets rid of waste, and it gets rid of waste without using any chemicals or any filter socks or anything like that. You know, all you do is set it and you walk away for the most part. Yeah, you got to empty the contents every now and then. For me, I have a cup at the top that I got to empty. Maybe one day I will attach it to a larger container, but even then, I still got to empty it. So that's pretty much it. Maintenance is easy. You got to just keep the skimmer clean, and you're usually good to go. You know, as far as the other thing a skimmer does is it adds oxygen to your water. It aerates your tank, and that is essential. One, because if you have fish in your tank, you know, they're going to need air. They need dissolved oxygen. Skimmer does a great job of doing that. And the other thing it does is it helps with your pH. It helps get air in your tank that is not oversaturated with carbon dioxide. You run fresh air lines to your skimmer that injects that fresh air into your tank, and it will help keep your pH up. So number 1 to talk about is definitely get yourself a good protein skimmer. Now, the next thing that I think you should consider is your lights. Now, if you're just running a fish-only tank with live rock, lights really aren't that important. Really, it's going to be whatever is pleasing to your eye. But we're talking about people that are running reef tanks or mixed reef tanks, and that's going to be very heavily dictated by the type of lighting you use. This is another area where you shouldn't skimp. So get yourself good quality lighting that's going to work based off the type of animals, the type of corals you're going to keep in that tank. So if you're going to keep LPS or just a zoanthid tank, that's going to require different lighting than if you're going to go full SPS dominant top to bottom. Yeah, you may bust out metal halides or some high-end T5s or LEDs for a fully SPS dominant tank. Whereas if you're just running some softies, you can get away with some of these black boxes or some of the lower end, you know, not full featured lights that are out there. And don't get me wrong, people, especially advanced reefers, have had success and do have success with lower end lights out there. But, to be honest, this is one area that I personally didn't skimp on, and I think it is essential to your overall success of your reef tank. So that's my second one, is lighting. All right, here we are at the third piece of gear that I think you need to be successful with a reef tank, and that's going to be your water movement. Now, in the past, I would just call it a wave maker, but your power head, your pump, whatever you want to label it, it's what creates water flow and movement within your tank. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give you, if you have a mixed reef or an SPS reef, you need good random flow in that tank. And I'm running MP40s on my tank. I change the flow throughout the day. At night it goes to a different flow, and I attribute a lot of my success to having really good random flow throughout my tank. And it's important that you just don't blast flow right across your corals. That's not what you need to do. You need flow that hits every corner of your tank. You don't want any dead spots. Not only does that benefit the corals, but it also helps lessen the chance that you're going to have problems with other issues down the road. Specifically, I would say cyano is one of the big culprits of dead zones. So making sure you have good random flow. And here's another tip. It's probably got to be stronger than what you currently think it needs to be. A lot of people think that the proper flow is too much because, oh, look at how everything's really moving and look at the fish. You got to understand, a reef is hard, fast moving water. I know, I'm a scuba diver, I've been on reefs, and it's hard to hold yourself in place. Don't worry about your inverts and your fish. They are designed to live in these environments. So even though I have heavy flow in my tank, my fish move around like there's not anything going on at all. They can hold in one spot with huge flow hitting them because that's what they're designed to do. So don't worry about your fish, don't worry about your inverts or anything else like that. Short of just blasting directly onto your corals where the flesh is going to be flying off of it, you can't really have too much flow. So get yourself some high quality flow in that tank. All right, here we are, number 4. And, some of you might not agree with this, but I think having a really good media reactor is essential to having a successful reef tank. Now, here's the thing with a media reactor is that you can put all different types of things in there. Really, the big two, though, are going to be carbon and GFO. And those are the two things that I use in my media reactor. I just switched over to this style media reactor because it's so much easier to operate than the 2 canister system that I was using before. It kind of looks like a reverse osmosis system, and it was just too much work to clean. This is super easy. So get yourself a good media reactor. I personally always run carbon in my systems. I always have. I just like what it does for me. It helps, especially with a mixed reef and you have things like toadstools that shed and there might be toxins. I like having the carbon in there all the time. And then sometimes if your phosphates get out of control and you're kind of at your wit's end, you got to throw some GFO in there. Boom, put it in there with your carbon and you're done. Make sure that you've got the proper flow so that you have like your GFO tumbling slightly and you don't want your carbon just being blasted everywhere. It will grind itself to bits. So get yourself a good media reactor, and that will help keep your water nice and crystal clear. You can see from one end of my tank to the other, almost like there's no water in there. Get yourself a media reactor. That's number 4. And we have come to the last item on my list, the 5th thing I think you need to have a successful reef tank. And you know what? I've been doing this over 20 years, and I think this little piece of equipment is one of the single greatest inventions and pieces of technology in the reefing industry in those 20 years, and that is having an auto top-off system. Back in the day, I would use an IV line, like from a hospital, connected to a container of water to just slowly drip water into my tank as a top off, and you just had to guess, and close enough counted. Now you have electric eyes, you've got float valves, you have all these different high-end ways to maintain perfect water chemistry as far as topping off your water regularly with the right amount, so your salinity stays rock solid, for me at 35. And it includes all kinds of safety features, and running mine through the apex, I'm alerted if there's a problem. So I'm telling you, if you're not running an ATO and you are hand adding water once a day or various points throughout the day, you're stressing your system. Get yourself an ATO. They're cheap, they're easy to set up, and they take off one of the most tedious tasks off your plate of having a reef tank, and that is adding fresh water to your tank as it evaporates. So my fifth thing, and which would probably be my number one thing out of these five, would be an ATO, an automatic top-off system. So that's going to round off my top 5 things you should have to be a successful reefer. Well, there you have it. There's my top 5 pieces of reefing gear that I think everybody should have. Again, can you be successful without them? Absolutely. And just so you know, I didn't put these in any particular order, so they're all equally important to me. Let me know in the comments below if you think I got your top 5, or what would you add to the top 5. And I'm sure on an upcoming episode, we will make sure to cover more recommended pieces of reefing gear. But for now, we're going to stick to these 5, and we will see you on the next episode of TJ's Reef. So until then, happy reefing, and don't forget to drop the boom. Hey there, everyone. I know it's been a bit since we've seen Brick in the show, but let me show you that Brick is here, and in fact, we have added another member to the TJ's Reef family. And let me reintroduce you to Brick, and also introduce you to the newest member right here. So here we have Brick. You all remember Brick probably from episode 1, and his new little sister. This is Basil. Basil is 8 months old, and she is a mix of French Bulldog and miniature Australian Shepherd. So as you can see, they hate each other and don't get along whatsoever. But they've been great, and apparently it's nap time. So welcome Basil to the TJ's Reef. This is her premiere, so can you give me a boom? Yeah, that probably wasn't smart on my part, was it? Oh, okay, we're okay. Later.